Well, welcome, students. And as you begin your Algebra 1 class in Apex, we wanted to give you a quick tutorial on how you can use Desmos to help you through your coursework. So for each unit, we're going to align some questions from that unit with the Desmos calculator. Primarily, we're going to be using the high school version. There is another one, if you just Google it, just called Desmos Graphing. But since this is the one that the state of Ohio puts on their test, primarily that's the one we're going to be using. So let's get started. So some of the questions you're going to see in Unit 1 are going to revolve around whether you can determine whether a number is rational or irrational. Remember, a rational number can be written like a fraction. That could just be a number, it could be a fraction, it could be a decimal that ends, or it could be a decimal that repeats. So just knowing that, you should know then that the irrational one is square root of 5. But let me show you on Desmos where you can do square roots. So you click that bottom, and the square root button is right there. Now, again, it won't go on forever because the screen is only so big, but you can see that these decimals continue to the end and do not repeat, clearly showing that square root of 5 is an irrational number. Now, when you're looking here for an irrational one, the one thing we want to be careful of is don't just assume every time you see a square root that that's going to make it irrational. So if you put in square root of 9, notice you just get 3, an integer, a rational number. And that should make sense because 3 times 3 is 9. Therefore, the square root of 9 is 3. So don't just see that and immediately assume that that's the irrational one. Notice that you have this last choice here, 3 pi. The calculator that the state gives you has a pi button. And again, there you go. There's the number that continues on forever without repeating, making it irrational. Now, a couple other things that you will notice, you may be asked to evaluate things. The nice thing about Desmos is that it has programmed in it the order of operations, or as some kids like to call the please excuse my dear Aunt Sally rules. All of these are already pre-programmed into the Desmos calculator. So you don't have to worry about parentheses, exponents, multiply, divides, and then lastly adds or subtracts left or right. You can simply put what you see right into the calculator and get that 227 would be the correct response. The last thing that Desmos is going to help you with is solving equations. Now, what they're trying to show you here is inverse operations. To get x by itself, the opposite of adding 19 would be subtracting 19 from both sides. And obviously, if you just put the number in there, even though it's a graphing calculator, it'll still do basic calculations for you and get you the answer of 7. Now, what we do want to show you is something where if you just plug the equation in, and you may already know this, the state version says there's only one variable. I'm not sure what to do with that. But the other version of Desmos actually does allow you to plug an equation in, and where it crosses the x-axis, it kind of gives the answer away. That's one of the reasons why the state disables that on their version. However, that doesn't mean that you can't get around still sort of working this. If you take the left side of the equation and say y equals x plus 19, and then you do a second tab on Desmos with the right side of the equation, y equals 26, and you just sort of find where those two things intersect at, you realize that they intersect when x is 7. Another way to sort of get around it, even on the state version, and get your correct answer and decide, or verify rather, that you've got the right answer. So let's do that with this last one here. We put in x divided by 5, and we want to make y equals. We're going to do the left side, x divided by 5. And then we're going to do the right side, y equals 30. Now, again, you may be looking like, I don't really see much. So don't be afraid to scroll out. Up now, there's the green line, and you might have to really sort of play around with the window there. You realize for this, x is 150, and that should make sense because x is being divided by 5. The opposite of dividing by 5 is, of course, multiplying by 5. So some of these you may actually get faster pencil paper, but it's not bad to check those on Desmos. So hopefully these little tips will help you through Unit 1, and we'll see you then for Unit 2.